Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Optronics Trailer Light Kit for trailers over 80 inches wide. So this particular kit here is going to be a complete full-on overhaul for your trailer. It's going to come with a number of different components, such as the tail lights, which we see here, one for the driver's side, one for the passenger side. The one for the driver's side, the tail light's going to be a little bit different. There's actually going to be a clear panel at the bottom of our tail light here with a light that shines through that'll illuminate our license plate light. It's also going to come with the bracket, which sandwiches behind the trailer mounting bracket and our tail light to provide an attachment point for our license plate. Also in our kit here, we're going to get two side marker lights with this nice chrome bezel you can see here. And we're also going to get two reflectors, which you can see here. So then the last two things we get, we're going to get a trailer connector for the vehicle side, which is the one here with the shorter lead. And we're also going to get the longer one for the trailer side. This particular harness here is going to come with a 25-foot lead. So all of our lights here are going to be waterproof, meaning they can be submerged in water. So they're going to be a perfect addition for your boat trailer, which is actually what we have them installed on here. So as you can notice, our actual tail lights are going to be pretty good size. They're pretty long this way. And the reason for this is they're actually going to be designed for trailers over 80 inches wide. Now, certain DOT regulations require taillights to be a certain size when your trailer is over a certain width. So you can definitely use these on the smaller trailers, but they're also going to allow you to remain legal with your wider trailers. So in regards to installation, this kit is definitely made or designed rather for you guys to be able to install it at home by yourselves. We really don't need any specialized tools, and the kit is going to come with everything we need. That's one of the reasons I really like this particular kit here, is that it's all-inclusive. It comes with everything, down to the stainless steel fasteners we're going to need to use to attach. We will, mind you, have to drill a couple holes into the trailer frame, but it's really not going to be super hard, and there's only going to be a couple for each of our lights. So let's go ahead and jump into that installation now so we can show you guys how it's done. So the first step of our installation, we're going to install and secure our trailer connector along with part of our wiring harness. Now you're going to get two different trailer connectors in your kit here. You're going to get a vehicle side and you're going to get a trailer side. The trailer side one is obviously going to be the one with the longer harness. As you can see here, we have quite a bit of extra wire. So what we need to do now is we need to go ahead and find the end of our wires. We're going to have two sides, one with a green and brown, one with the yellow and brown. And we need to run this back to each of our tail lights. Now in order to do that here on our boat trailers, most boat trailers, we're going to have this straight pull tongue here. It's going to be hollowed out, and this is what we're going to be able to use to run our wire back to the tail lights. In order to do that, before you rip out your existing wiring, we can actually use this to help route the wire through the frame here. Now I went ahead and cut off the trailer connector that was on there, but this is going to be the factory harness that runs through the channel of our tubing here. So what I'm going to do before we completely remove that is I'm going to take some electrical tape and I'm simply going to tie these two wires here onto this wire. And the reason I'm going to do that is we're going to secure these wires to the existing wiring, so then I can come underneath the trailer, I can find the other end of our factory harness, and I can pull it through that way, which is going to bring our new harness into the frame here. So here we can see where the channel of our frame opens up and we have the factory harness. Now we have the same two connectors that we seen earlier. We have the yellow and brown wire, we have the green and brown wire. I went ahead and already cut those from behind the tail lights, so I didn't have to worry about those. But basically what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pull our factory wire, pull that all the way through until we can start seeing the new wiring harness. So now once we have the majority of our harness pulled through the frame here, I'm going to come out to the coupler end here. I'm going to pull out about 2 to 3 feet. We don't want to pull all of our wiring in there because we still need to leave enough to make turns and to connect it to the trailer connector on our vehicle. So I'm going to pull out about this much here. What I'm going to need to do now is, so in our kit here, we get about 1 foot long of the lead for the ground. As you can see here, this isn't going to be long enough for the amount of slack we want to have. So all we need to do is simply extend our ground wire a little bit. In order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and take some wire strippers, strip back about 1/4 inch of the jacket. And these parts aren't going to come in your kit here, but it's really going to vary depending on how much slack you leave yourself. But we're just going to go ahead and crimp on a heat shrink butt connector. That way I can take some extra wire we have here just laying around and just extend that. Now keep in mind, you may not need to extend your ground wire. It really just depends on how much slack you want to leave yourself. Now I'm going to take our heat gun here. We're just going to seal up our heat shrink butt connector. It's always a good idea when you're working on boat trailers or really any exposed wire to make sure you seal the connections up so you don't get any corrosion in there that causes lighting issues. So on the other end of our ground wire here, I went ahead and just gave a rough little length calculation to see our ground point's going to be around here. So just to see about how much wire we needed to cut off. But I went ahead and trimmed the XX off and just crimped on one of our heat shrink ring terminals. Now we'll go ahead and seal that up as well. Now we have another step here. Again, it's just going to be optional. We're sort of going above and beyond here. We don't want to have to deal with any issues down the line. We're going to be taking some loom here, some wire loom. Keep in mind this doesn't come with your kit. And basically, I'm just going to use this to protect the wires that we have exposed outside of the frame there. So it's pretty easy to install. You can get it pretty much anywhere. We do sell this here through eTrailer, or you can pick it up at a local hardware store. It's a pretty common item, and it's super easy to install. Just going to help protect our wires that are outside the frame here. So now that we've got our wire loom on, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take the ring terminal along with the self-tapping screw. We're going to go ahead and just secure this to the frame. And then the last thing we're going to do here at the front, we're just going to take some dielectric grease. We're just going to coat the inside of our connector here. And then we can pretty much just wrap it around our coupler or the frame here to keep it out of the way. So the next thing we're going to do, you can see we have our wire. It comes out the opening in our channel here. We need to go ahead and route either of these sides back to where we're going to install our taillights. The green wire with the brown wire is going to be run to the passenger side, and the yellow wire with the brown wire is going to be run to the driver's side. Now, in order to keep our wire from falling down, in our kit here, we're going to get these little clips here. You can see we have them installed already. But essentially how they work is, one side has some teeth on it. Those are going to go into the frame, and the other side is going to be a little bit smoother. That's where we're actually going to put our wire through to secure it here to make sure it doesn't fall down. So now, as you can see, we have our wires here. We're going to be doing the driver's side first. So the driver's side, again, is going to be yellow with the brown wire. We're going to run this here to the location which we're going to install our tail light, which is on this bracket here. We went ahead and removed the existing tail light, which mounts using these two holes here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the driver's side tail light that comes in our kit here. You're going to be able to distinguish this from the other one, because if we flip it down on the bottom, you're going to see we have this clear section here, which is going to be for our license plate light. So that's how we know that we have the driver's side. So if we take a look at the back of our tail light here, you're going to see we have 3 different sets of mounting holes here. Now chances are, if you're replacing an existing light that uses those 2 studs, it's going to match up with these 2 inner ones here. But if not, you'd want to mark up your tail light here, set it up on this bracket, and then mark the center of these 2 slots here so we could drill our holes out. So we're going to need to drill 2 holes here, one on either side, which is going to be used to secure the light to the bracket. And then we actually need to drill a center hole as well to feed our wires through. So let's go ahead now and take the carriage bolts that come in our kit here. We'll slide them up through the bracket like so. And then before we install it on the bracket here, for the driver's side, we're going to have our license plate light that mounts to this bracket. So we'll go ahead and feed our wires through that center hole, and then the 2 holes in the bracket should line up with the 2 holes there on the back of the light. Now we can go ahead and install it on the bracket. We're first going to feed our wires through the center hole there. We actually have a grommet, so I drilled out the center hole a little bit larger so I could use a grommet. That way I don't have to worry about the wires getting worn there on the inside of the bare metal. pull that through, and then we'll line up our holes. Now we can come on the back side and secure everything. We're going to use one of our split lock washers in our kit, and then one of our jam nuts. So now we'll take a 10mm socket. We'll go ahead and snug our 2 bolts up here. You want to make sure you don't tighten them too tight because the taillight body is plastic, so we can crack and break that. But there we go. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach the ground wire for our taillight here. We have a couple different options. We can use a self-tapping screw to drill into this bracket. I didn't quite have as much wire as I needed to reach over here under the frame, so I think what we're going to do is I'm just actually going to loosen one of these nuts here for the taillight. I'm actually just going to use the stud which sandwiches on that metal bracket there is our ground. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to take the brown and yellow wire here that comes from our trailer connector. I'm going to go ahead and cut off some of the excess now. I'm sure, as you can probably tell, we're going to be attaching these to the brown and yellow wire coming from our taillight. So it's going to be a good idea, again, to use heat shrink butt connectors. I'm going to try to split that wire as best we can, separate the 2 leads. Now I'll just take off some of the jacket here. I always just like to give a nice little tug on each side once we make the crimps to make sure everything is secure. But now I'm going to come back with our heat gun here. I'm going to seal up our butt connectors. So we've got our wires sort of taped up here so we don't have as much excess slack. And then in order to make everything look nicer, like we've been doing so far, we're going to be using some wire loom here, just placing that over the exposed wires. Now we're over here on the passenger side. We have our wire rain over here. We're just going to repeat that same process we did with the driver's side taillight. The only difference is going to be we're not going to have that license plate bracket that's sandwiched in between. So once we have our taillights installed, we're going to come back underneath our trailer here. We're actually going to be splicing into the main harness just directly after the channel opens up, probably about the center of the frame, if you will, wherever we're going to be installing our marker lights. So what we need to do, we actually need to splice into this running light wire here. So I'm going to be careful, and I'm going to separate it from the yellow wire, making sure that I don't actually cut the yellow wire as well. But just peel it back like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to splice on a butt connector. So on the side that goes to the trailer connector here, I'll put the butt connector on. And then on the other side here, before we reattach this wire, I'm actually going to be splicing in another brown wire, enough that'll allow us to run it over to the side of our frame here, where we're going to be mounting the side marker light. So I actually just took some scrap wire that we had left when we cut it off from the tail light. We should have plenty enough left over, depending on the length of our trailer. I'm actually going to attach these 2 wires here before I connect them to the other end of our butt connector. Give them a tug to make sure they're tight. Now we're going to go ahead and use our heat gun there to seal those up. So you can see here we have the other end of our wire coming out our butt connector, and then we just came straight across. I used a couple more of these clips. We actually had to use some older ones because we needed some more just to secure it to the frame here. And then I have it ran through a hole in the frame where it's going to be secured on the outside where our side marker light is. So here we have our brown wire came out here. This is actually where an existing side marker light was. So if you don't have one of these, you may need to drill a small hole into the frame to feed your wire through. But what we're going to do now is we have quite a bit of extra wire. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And then in your kit here, we're going to get these wire leads that look like this. I'm going to attach this to the end of our brown wire, but again, I need to cut that because we have a little bit too much. and we're just going to splice on a heat shrink butt connector the same way we've been doing it this far. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our template here for our side marker light. We're going to go ahead and try to find a good place to mount that. Center it as best we can there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a self-tapping screw here. I'm actually going to run it through the other way because it's a little bit easier on that side. But we're going to take our self-tapper. I'm not going to run it all the way down. I'm going to use that though. Put our gasket behind there. See, it goes on like this. Feed our wire through the center. Then I can match up our hole here. Get that one started. Before we snug that one down, come with the other side with our self-tapping screw. Make sure we center the light here. Then run that one home. And there we have it. We're going to take our side marker light that comes in our kit here. We're first going to take some dielectric grease. There's already a little bit on there, but I'm going to add a little bit more. We're just going to coat those terminals there. Now, we're going to have two of these and only one connector. So what's going to happen is this bottom one here is going to line up with our ground terminal, which is grounded to the frame. It doesn't matter which one we use, but one's going to go to the ground, then one is going to be for the power, which is going to line up with the top one on ours. So we'll press that in until we hear it click. Going to pull our wire back through, and then we should be able to mount the clearance light. So now that we have everything hooked up, we're going to go ahead and hook up our test box here so we can check to make sure all our lights are working. We have our tail lights now, left turn signal, brake lights, and then our right turn signal. And that'll do it today for our look and installation of the Optronics Trailer Light Kit for trailers over 80 inches wide.